Back to the action once again in the Clio Cup Series 2023, and we're at the Nürburgring in the Eifel Mountains. The Schloss on the top of the hill overlooking the scene, partway between the beautiful mountain ranges here and a fantastic backdrop overlooking the Nordschleife, which is adjacent to the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit. The air temperature very different to yesterday. It was quite hot at the end of yesterday's race action, which is where we saw race 1. Race 2, it's very different. 14.5 degrees air temperature, and it's a very challenging combination of conditions this time. Yesterday, it all got a little bit hectic in the last 5.5 minutes of racing, didn't it? Anybody that came out of the race without panel damage to their doors was probably doing a fair job. However, that's Clio Cup racing. I'm Jake Sanson, great to be with you once again. And the drivers are making their way to the starting grid. Now, of course, the grid formation for this race is based on qualifying 1. Qualifying 2 sets the grid for race 1. Qualifying 1 sets the grid for race 2, just to make things a little bit more interesting. Now, that session at the end of Friday evening was run in very wet conditions, or at least getting wetter conditions. So anybody that set a decent lap in the first 3 minutes of that qualifying session is in a relatively good starting position. What it does mean is that the grid is slightly different to what we saw for race 1 yesterday. Gabriele Torelli is once again in pole position, and Alex Finkelstein is once again in second. Adrian Schimpf is once again in third, but after that point onwards, everything becomes different. David Pouget, who was the man who really threatened Gabriele Torelli's authority at the start of that massive battle yesterday, is going to be starting from even higher up the grid than he was, P4. So if Pouget gets a good start ahead of Schimpf and Finkelstein, then we could see the mother of all conflicts between Torelli and Pouget. Jędrzej Spinkovic has done a much better job for the grid for this one. He's going to be lining up 5th on the grid, the Polish driver and the Clio Cup Middle East champion. He'll be starting 5th on the grid, and then Andreas Stucki is going to be lining up 6th on the grid. Much better than yesterday in the black and white Stucki Motorsport machine, the family-run team. So he'll be going off P6. And then Thomas Pekar, Nicolas Melan, Jacopo Giuseppe Ximenez and Nikola Milkovic are going to be rounding out the top 10. To the starting grid. Eat my cheese, it says on the top of the radiator. Gabriele Torelli, always with a jovial smile and a very lackadaisical approach to his motorsport. However, yesterday, he got his nose firmly nudged out of joint because David Pouget was not in a mood to play nice with him. And as a result, both Anthony Girardot and Gabriele Torelli ended up with broken wing mirrors on the final lap of yesterday's race. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it goes for this second race encounter of the weekend. With the cars making their way to the starting grid, you can see in the middle of your screen the Renault Clio Cup safety car. There is not going to be a safety car start. It's just there to obviously continue to conduct procedure and protocol. But the drivers are making their way now to the starting grid, and it's going to be a very intriguing battle from here on in, especially if yesterday's race is anything to go by, as the Schimpf pair will make their way to the starting grid. Adrian is starting quite a considerable way ahead of Alejandro Schimpf in the AST competition car. He's going to be starting down in 12th, whereas Adrian Schimpf will be starting in 3rd position on the grid. But yet again, the Milan Competition squad car of Anthony Girardot is going to be starting outside the top 10. So that's a lot of ground for Anthony Girardot to have to make up. This man, though, Alexander Finkelstein, came away with a victory yesterday by being smart and thinking very calculated and tactical rather than just going gung-ho and hoping for the best. He actually picked his moment and waited for the lead to come to him. When Pouget and Torelli were banging 7 bells out of each other and going off the road, that was when Finkelstein picked up the pieces and said, "Thanks, boys, I'll take the victory." And he took the lead and kept it to the flag, despite anything that any other driver could chuck his way. Really good racing in the first encounter yesterday. It'll be hard to see how even in these cooler and slightly more changeable conditions, that is going to be matched. But one thing we can really say in positivity about the Clio Cup Series race yesterday, it wasn't spoilt by safety car periods. It was a proper, pure thrash of a race, and that's what we wanted. David Pouget, even closer to the front of the grid today than he was at the start of the race yesterday, and he got himself into hot water with Gabriele Torelli. So let's see how it goes today. He's really going to have an exciting battle in front of him, as up to the grid comes the 113 of Adrian Schimpf, now in 3rd position. So there is Jędrzej Spinkovic. It's going to be a really exciting battle for him. 5th position on the grid, even better than yesterday. was a great battler in his karting days, both in his native Poland and across Europe. Went across to the Middle East when he switched to Clios to learn about the sport. And now he's here in the European Series, doing a fantastic job. He also races in the Italian Championship, so he'll be scoring points in that category as well. But it's obviously going to be a very intriguing situation for him as he goes off the inside of the third row. There is Andreas Stuckey, black bonnet, white car, easy to spot from a distance. The family-run team, obviously still giving him plenty of excitement and great battles to come here in the Clio Cup Series race. He got himself into the middle of the battles yesterday. Unfortunately, he wasn't really able to maintain his place in the top 6. Wonderful to see so many different versions of Renault race team wear up and down this grid. You see everything from the 80s to the 90s to the mid-2000s to the current era. There is Thomas Pekar in the Carpec Racing team, number 101. He'll be starting from the inside of the 4th row of the grid, the young man from the Czech Republic. So he obviously wants to get a decent start, and being on that left side of the grid as the driver sees it, he'll be on the racing line, so he has the chance of a better launch up to the first corner. Of course, it's a standing start in Clio Cup, so you'll obviously need to make sure you wind up the tyres and brakes to a decent temperature on the formation lap. And from there on in, you're on your own. Outside of the 4th row of the starting grid, it is a very popular customer within the Clio Cup Series field, Mr. Clio Cup himself, Nicolas Milan. Milan competition car. 8th position, he's not had the best of weekends thus far. Kept out of danger yesterday. That's how he was able to come through for a decent finish in the final lap. Got himself back into the top 5 again. And he'll need to do a similar job if he wants to score big points. But with other drivers around him having difficulty, that's where he can really make gains. 3 minutes to go before we go racing, with the 3 lights on up at the top spot there. And there are the famous Momo Motorsport colours. Jacopo Ximenes. They're going to be running from that car in the 82, from 9th on the grid. The Esse Corsa car running in 9th position off the starting grid. Again, another opportunity for him there from the left side of the circuit, heading down to turn 1. If he gets a decent launch, then he could find himself in the top 6 if he gets it right. But he's going to have a lot of challenges from a lot of the drivers around him. And then on the outside of that 5th row of the grid, the Tempo Racing team driver in the very distinctive yellow, black and white livery of Nikola Milkovic, who's going to be there in 10th position for the Tempo Racing team. And of course, as I've already mentioned, we haven't heard the name Anthony Girardot mentioned in that grid lineup yet, and that's because he finds himself outside the top 10. So there's definitely at least one big name to watch charged back through. There's a couple of drivers out of position actually on this grid, but the biggest of those names not to be in the top 10 in readiness for this particular race is that man, the number 1, Anthony Girardot. He's ready for the action. You can see all of the various stickers that have been applied to the window of the car to mark all of the various victories and scalps he's taken off other drivers in various different results. But certainly for Anthony Girardot, this is not where he wanted to be at all. 11th position on the starting grid for race 2. Look at all those incredible achievements. That's how Anthony Girardot showcases what he's good at. Final call to get the drivers and mechanics, sorry, just the mechanics, I should say, off the starting grid. The final grid is cleared, and it'll be just the drivers left to their procedure. The one light will come off when there is 30 seconds to go, and then the final light will come off and they'll go green as they go round on their formation lap. A fabulous race ahead of us, and after yesterday's thrilling encounter, it's definitely going to be very exciting to see how this will all play out in the closing stages. We're going to have a very exciting conclusion to the Clio Cup Series at the Nürburgring here in 2023. And we'll get to see some very intriguing battles on the course. So who is going to have the best of it? We will have to find out, because it's getting pretty intriguing at this point on the course. But now we'll see. Tirelli, Finkelstein, Schimpf and Pouget from the front. Watch out for Nicolas Milan and Anthony Girardot to make up some places. Here we go on the formation lap. And once this lap is completed, they'll bring it back onto the start-finish line. And we'll be racing around the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit for the last time this weekend in the Clio Cup Series. Great racing so far in 2023. And all we need now is the cooler conditions, slightly damp in places around the track. Bring it on. Clio Cup Series Race 2 is underway shortly. Gabriele Torelli and race winner from yesterday, Alex Finkelstein on the front row of the grid. Adrian Schimpf is alongside the GBA car of David Pouget on the second row. Then Jerzy Spinkovic and Andreas Stucki to round out the top 6. Thomas Pekar is alongside the Milan competition number 5, Nicolas Milan. Jacopo Jimenez is 9th on the grid in the Esse Corsa car alongside Nikola Milkovic in the Tempo. Anthony Gerardo way down in 11th on the grid alongside Alejandro Schimpf. Watch the pair of them charge through. Christian Ricciarini is alongside Aurélien René. Then René Steenmetz is beside Mariano Alonso in the 42 GBA. Florian Venturi in the GM alongside Jeremy Bordageret in the Milan car. Laurent Zierdus in the Team Lucas machine alongside Stefan Polderman in the AST. Then Lionel Viguier in the T2CM and Damiano Puccetti in the Rangoni Corsa. Fabian Julia, the one retirement from yesterday, alongside Daniel Niffler in the Stucki, then Guillaume Maillot in the GM alongside Henrik Siebel in the Carbeck. Thomas Compin is in the Milan Competition car alongside Super Mario, Martin Kuhl in the Kuhl Racing Machine. Matthias Dahl is beside Vinish Schunker, and then Rafael Quadrado is beside Sebastian Gehin in the 2 TCM. Then Samuel Chalin in his machine, Michel Fay in the GM, and the final row of the grid will be taken up by just the Lone Ranger Udo Brenner, as Gabriel Alonso appears to be missing from the fray. So 35 cars are there in position on the grid. There were 36, so we've had one withdrawal. I'll try and double check. I think I might actually be incorrect as to who the driver not taking up the start of the race is. It might be a little further up the line. I think it's actually Fabian Julia who had technical problems yesterday. So Fabian Julia has actually been removed from the fray and is not competing today. So obviously the mechanical problem that befell him yesterday has come back to bite him, and they will not go racing in race 2. Hopefully that means we'll have the 35 cars that finished yesterday coming through in fine style. I noticed that both Gabriele Torelli and Anthony Gerardo have repaired their wing mirrors. So they've clearly dug into the barrel of the spares and managed to get the cars repaired, ready for today. Still finished in fine style, but with cars slightly less dynamic than they were yesterday. So Gabriele Torelli is rather hoping for a cleaner race in Sunday's encounter than he did last night. As for Nicolas Milan and Anthony Gerardo, as long as they can get close and challenge him, they don't mind how the skill of the racing goes. But certainly for David Pouget, he's the one to watch for me. 4th position on the grid. He was a lot lower than that in yesterday's race. I think he was 7th on the grid yesterday. So for him to then charge back to 2nd position shows that David Pouget is definitely up for the scrap. And don't forget, he was the one that started all the badinage with Gabriele Torelli at the end of race 1 yesterday. So he'll clearly feel, well, I can go for the victory again on Gabriele Torelli, and I'm going to. So Torelli comes past my position, ahead of Alex Finkelstein, off the back of his brilliant victory yesterday. Did a terrific job to get there. The 113 of Adrian Schimpf, and then David Pouget from Jerzy Spinkovic, and Andreas Stucki from Thomas Pekar and Nicolas Milan. So the 35 cars that will take up the start of race 2. The leaders are already in the front row of the grid. That's the thing with having 35 cars on the starting grid. Once you get to the front row, you are sat there for an incredibly long time, waiting for the rest of the field to get back into position. What is going to be to the benefit of Anthony Gerardo is he's going to be on the racing line side of the grid. Nicolas Milan and David Pouget are going to be on the dirty side of the grid, the cooler section of the grid. So this could be a really interesting start. Ziadus making his way to the grid, so we've still got a good 12.5 or so cars waiting to get into their final grid positions. So everybody just trying to file up as quickly as possible. Everybody has come through, so all 35 cars will take their positions on the start. And now we are ready for some action. Torelli, Finkelstein, Schimpf, Pouget, Spinkovic, Stucki. Watch for Nicolas Milan from P8. Watch from Anthony Gerardo from P11. The final couple of cars will take their position at the very back of the grid. And now that they are into position, we'll get the green flag from the marshal as the final car of Udo Brenner files up in position, the number 14 car. The marshal will wave the green flag at the back of the grid to make sure that everybody is ready. The 5-second board comes up, and we are ready to race in the Clio Cup once again here at the Nürburgring. Good start from Finkelstein, better start from Pouget on the second row. He's already going to beat Schimpf to the corner, and he's going to beat Finkelstein to the corner. So here we go, it's going to be Tirelli versus Pouget. Ding ding, round two once again. Looks like a good start from Nicolas Milan as well. He's going to get alongside Spinkovic as they go through turn one. Round the outside of Spinkovic comes Pekar, and Anthony Girardot is being held up behind Milkovic. So Schimpf trying to get through on the inside of Finkelstein, go through turn two. Not going to happen just yet, but David Pouget is already going to try and make his impression on the inside of Gabriele Tirelli. And a big slide there from Nicolas Milan. So that's going to lose him ground to both Pekar and Spinkovic. Watch for Stuckey in the background as Pekar goes off the road. So too does Stuckey. So a couple of drivers catching some damp patches. Anthony Girardot is going to get a little bit of momentum here to tag in behind Pekar and go up the inside of Andreas Stuckey. So Girardot is on the move. He gets the overtaking move. So Pouget now all over the back of Gabriele Tirelli. It's a big tight slapper from Milkovic, and there's nowhere for either he or Pekar to go. They go into the gravel. They bring a lot of gravel back onto the circuit with them as they recover. But certainly up front, it's as you were yesterday, Tirelli versus Pouget. So Tirelli leads the way from David Pouget, third position, Finkelstein, fourth is Adrian Schimpf, and there's more tank slapping through the corner as more drivers end up in the gravel. Is that Pekar again? I think it is. So Thomas Pekar has ended up dropping it. He wasn't the only one to lose ground. So as the field works its way up the hill, everybody trying to stay out of dodge. That was a very big problem, and Guillaume Maillot gets into the side of the car that got sideways. That was Ziadus, and Ziadus is now embedded in the gravel. Keep it nice and tidy, guys. Unfortunately for Laurent Ziadus, that's already stable doors after bolted, etc., etc. And the incident between Girardot and Milkovic is going to be investigated after the race. And the race is going to continue, but can Ziadus get out of the gravel? Because otherwise, at that point on the circuit, I think we could be under safety car. As down in the braking zone for the Vidal chicane. Trying to dive through. Tirelli's got Pouget all over the back of him. Then we have then we have Finkelstein, in front of Schimpf. Milkovic is trying to cover the inside. He's got problems. Milkovic has got damage to the car by the look of it because he's just lost positions to both René and Ricciarini round the outside. And Ziadus, that car is beached. So surely this is going to be a safety car. As the drivers come towards us, indeed, safety car, safety car. Now, unfortunately, the drivers have just gone through the first corner. Laurent Ziadus not happy at all. Not a lot he can do about that, but I'm afraid Laurent Ziadus out of the race. So the drivers have just gone past the starting line, so the safety car couldn't quite get out there fast enough to catch the leaders of the field. So they'll have to do an entire lap without the safety car in the front of the field, and then they'll have to catch it back on the main straight again. So no overtaking. Safety car conditions. Let's look at the order as a result of all that. Tirelli, Pouget, Finkelstein, Schimpf, Milan, Spinkovic and Girardot. Then Stuckey, René, Venturi and Ricciarini in front of Milkovic down in 12th. Then Alonso, Alejandro Schimpf. And then it is Ximenes in front of Bodageret, Puccelti, Balderman, Sibel, Viguier and Guillaume Maillot, who very nearly got taken out there by the wayward Laurent Ziadus. Oh, they managed to pull the car out of the gravel, but I don't think he's going any further because that looks like a left front puncture to me. So I don't think Laurent Ziadus is going any further anyway. So there could have been a little bit of assistance to get him out of the gravel. Now the problem is that they've got him out and they've got that part of the course now clear, but they haven't caught up to the safety car, so they're going to have to do another lap behind the safety car. So let's go back and see what happened off the start. The big mover was David Pouget from 4th on the starting grid. He made the best start of it. Look, there he goes from the second row, cuts ahead of Schimpf, cuts ahead of Finkelstein. Perfect start from David Pouget. But watch Milan on the green machine, just to the left of your picture, gets a good start ahead of Stuckey, draws level with Spinkovic. Pekar to the far left of both of them. Pekar runs out of road, and Girardot tangles in with Milkovic. Watch Girardot in the blue and red machine, making his bid on Milkovic. A little further round, there goes Milan sliding sideways. And then Pekar gets sliding sideways as well. Stuckey runs out of road. So a little bit tricky on the opening lap, but now we're going to get to see, I think, what happened as two cars go into the gravel. And one of them is Pekar, who'd already had his moment or two. Whoops. And then we're going to get Laurent Ziadus flying off at the Schumacher chicane. There it happens. Ironically, he actually got nerfed wide by Maillot. So Maillot then gets tagged in the door for good measure. So very unfortunate. This is a slow-mo of what happened between Girardeau and Milkovic. Now that is going to be investigated after the race, because Girardeau's there on the inside of Milkovic, gets high on the curbs. There's a little bit of a door banging. Milkovic spits out wide, goes into the side of Pekar, and both Milkovic and Pekar are both going to drift off the road into the gravel. And look at how much the rubber was being pressurized into the ground there by Pekar with the contact. The rubber almost squeezed into the road, and the rim almost coming into contact with the tarmac. Such was the pressure that was being exerted on the front end of the Clio. That's what these slow-mo pictures really give you. They don't just give you a clearer picture of what happened, they also give you a real indication of the science of what happens to these cars as they take the punishment. So 19 minutes to go, plus the additional lap, but we're under safety car conditions because of the off into the gravel for Lorenzides. Frustratingly, his car was recovered halfway round that first safety car lap, but the field hadn't caught up to the safety car, so they had to at least catch up to it on the second lap around. There'll be a little bit of gravel to clear up, but I don't think that will take the marshals long. So there is the safety car, having picked up the field, and hopefully we'll be able to go racing this time around, now that the field has actually been caught up to the safety car, so that they can lead the field around. But there is just one retirement, and that is Lorenzides. There is a car into the pits though, and that is Thomas Pekar. Incident involving car 78 of Lorenzides is noted, so I have a feeling that Guillaume Maillot might end up needing to explaining himself at some point. So let's see how this all continues, but certainly for Thomas Pekar, it's a very slow race for him. He's into the pits, looking out of my commentary box window to see where in the pits he is based. It's a little further down the pit lane from where my eyes can see. But sadly, Thomas Pekar, who was right up in the top 10, not there anymore. Safety car in this lap. There is exactly what I thought would be the case. It's not a lot to clean up, and it's already done. So safety car will be in this lap, and we will go racing again. And look again at Anthony Girardeau's wing mirror. It's already fallen off. So clearly the repair job they did from yesterday, not sufficient, because his wing mirror on the right side is already flapping off the car. Girardeau up into 7th position on this start. So clearly, Girardeau's going to have to do all of his watching briefs from the left side of the car, not from the right. So Torelli is not slowing up the field that much as the safety car is getting ready to peel in. He clearly wants to have a little bit of advantage. And there's windscreen wipers ablaze on the windscreens of the cars. There is a little bit of a spit of rain at this top end of the course. Now this could get pretty tricky because everybody's on slick tyres. Out of the final turn though, and Torelli will control the pace from Pouget. Finkelstein's got a little bit of nudging from Schimpf. Now we go throttle open. We come off the final turn and we are racing again in the Clios, but there is some windscreen wipers going at it as we go down to the first corner. So here we go, Torelli, Pouget, Finkelstein, Schimpf, Milan, Spinkovic. Interestingly, Milkovic got ahead of Ricciarini over the line. So that could end up being a penalty potentially, as Milan is going to go the long way round Schimpf. He's not going to make that work. Girardeau's going to get alongside him, and this car's all over the shop sideways in that first turn. I think that was Milkovic going wide, managing to recover, but he's lost several places in the process. And it's getting greasy at this first sector of the course. Pouget dropping back from Torelli. And Milkovic, that's not even the racetrack. And there's a lot of steam coming off the 24. That is René trying to work his way further forward. So Aurélien René trying to make a little bit more pace. But look, there's a few cars now with windscreen wipers down at the bottom of the circuit as well. So rain has definitely returned to the Nürburgring. A lot of lockups there from René as he tries to work his way further forward. There is Jimenez dueling away with Milkovic. Coming off the turn, I think I saw Alonso trying to get in there as well with Pugetti. Milan trying to go for Schimpf. Schimpf is going for the inside of Finkelstein in the same breath. So Schimpf gets into 3rd position. Very nicely done. And Adrian Schimpf now gets back into the 3rd position he started in, but Finkelstein's trying to get him back again. He's trying to squeeze him, squeeze him, squeeze him. Gets him on the curve, that's enough. So Schimpf will hold 3rd. Torelli, Pouget, Schimpf, Finkelstein, Milan and Girardeau. Spinkovic down to 7th place. Here comes Milan having a go at Finkelstein. Finkelstein trying to hold the line on the inside in the green and white machine. Then behind him is Nicolas Milan in the Castrol colours of green, red and white. And then the blue and red machine of Anthony Girardot, the number 1. But that right wing mirror is flapping off the car. And if that comes off the car at any point, you better hope you're not too close to the bounce of that wing mirror, especially if that goes into the radiator. That could be a race-ending moment. Up the inside, Milan gets the move. 2 wheels in the air, 2 on the deck, and a little bit of nudging from Finkelstein on the exit. Milan's not going to finish the move. Girardot's going to get past both of them unless Finkelstein sorts it out. Girardot having to take cover. Milan round the outside and getting nudged wide and nearly into a spin. And Finkelstein, the race 1 winner, goes into the gravel at the final turn. The rain is coming down here at the Nürburgring, and it's getting heavier all the time. It's not particularly heavy yet, but it's getting greasy enough that these little Clios with very little contact patch of rubber are struggling to slow down at various points of the course. Careful into turn 1, guys. Careful, careful. So Nicolas Milan trying not to have too much of an issue there with Ricciarini. Ricciarini holding on the inside line. Everybody's still pointing in the right direction for the time being. How far down the field has Finkelstein dropped? 19th is the answer. And in fact, he's got more damage than he realizes because he's dropping more places. I think Finkelstein may be about to be out of this race. Whoa, off the road goes Girardot, recovers, gets back in front of Jerzy Spinkovic. So Nicolas Milan dropped a few places. Spinkovic trying to go for the move on Girardot. Down to the chicane, down the hill. Stuckey trying to go for Spinkovic and up the inside. We've got some good battles further back and off the road and into the gravel. Whoa, big moment for the 158 of Venturi. And Venturi, to be fair, the way the car embedded in the gravel, he is very lucky that he didn't roll it. Torelli and Pouget getting away from Schimpf, then Girardot, Spinkovic, 3 wide behind them. This is Stuckey, Milan and Ricciarini's going to get past both of them. Very nicely done there from Christian Ricciarini as he gets the move there onto the inside line and moves up into 6th position at the expense of Stuckey and Milan. So as they come up through, there's Alejandro Schimpf as well behind Nicolas Milan. The greasy conditions, definitely going to be tricky for these Clios. It's not heavy rain, but they're on slick tyres at the Nürburgring, so it's going to be very tricky. Finding grip is going to be tough to accomplish. René has got Alonso all over the back of him. Milkovic trying to get his move as well. Podachere is just behind them in the Milan competition car in the Castrol colours. Bit of a squeak off the turn, as now we're going to get to see the move from Alonso. He gets through on René. René's going to lose out to Milkovic here if he's not careful. On the throttle. So the incident involving Milan, Schimpf and Finkelstein is going to be, between Milan, Finkelstein and the 125 of Spinkovic. That's going to be investigated after the race. There's a car coming into the pits, potentially to change for dry tyres. No way. Well, certainly coming into the pits when they shouldn't have done, because this is not a pit stop race. But coming down pit lane, there's no penalty handed to that particular car. Who is it that came in? I think it was René. So Aurélien René coming into the pits then. So Aurélien René deciding to pit. Is that for wet tyres? Surely not. Down into the braking zone. We've got, a spinner right in the path of the oncoming cars. Oh, goodness me, that was Andreas Stuckey in the number 9, getting wide through turn 1 and losing the back end of the car. And now side by side, we have got Siebel going door to door with Progetti. Getting in the mix there as well. I think Viguier and Compagne want a bit of that. So too does Balderman. Up the inside there of the 16 of Viguier comes Siebel. A lot of damage to, is that the 99 of Mayo? That will have been courtesy of the little contretemps he had with Ziadus. 2 very different sides of the car livery there. Blue on one side, white on the other, with streaks of orangey red on the main body. Torelli going deep into the hairpin now. You can see the wider line is the better line to take. The drivers know this as it gets a little bit more damp and greasy. This is just before the McLaren Trophy race as well, so they're going to have fun in these conditions. Up the inside, Guillaume Mayo going for Siebel again, having already dispensed with the 16 of Viguier. But now look, we've got Ricciarini trying to shake off Nicolas Milan. Milan has already got past Schimpf and got well clear, Stuckey having spun off. So Milan trying to make his dive up the inside of Christian Ricciarini. Don't you dare, says Ricciarini. Do you think you've got that overtaking move done? Try something better than that, mate. So Nicolas Milan all over the back of Christian Ricciarini again. These cars take flight on one side of the car when they go over the curves. They're approaching the corners so quickly. Ricciarini on the windscreen wipers. Milan doesn't need to because he's following so closely behind Ricciarini. He hasn't got water on his windscreen. Now he's going to make the bid up the inside into the Vidal chicane. Lovely job. No problems at all for Nicolas Milan. Whoa, up in the air though on two wheels. That final turn has definitely got rain. Bit of a problem for Schimpf in the background. But it's very greasy in the final turn. That's where the rain is currently coming down. So Torelli is your leader, then Pouget, then Schimpf, Gerardo, Spinkovic, then Nicolas Milan up into sixth position past Ricciarini. Then in eighth place now, that is Alejandro Schimpf in front of Milkovic and Bordagere. Ricciarini coming back at Milan into the first corner. Further back, we've got Siebel still defending. That's Compan trying to come through. And then watch for the car behind them. That's the blue machine, Super Mario, Martin Kuhl. You'll notice that the Super Mario sticker is resplendent on the side of the car. So those two still going wheel to wheel, Siebel and Compan. Henrik Siebel looking good to try and hold on to this, but Compan coming off the turn, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more decisive on the inside as well. Three wheels on the road and one getting a little bit airborne. Here comes Kuhl behind them in P18, the number 6 car. This is getting very tricky. Is Super Mario going to make his move around the outside of both men? Stucki's going to try and get up the inside of Siebel as well. And Martin Kuhl trying his best to come through on the inside line. He'll hold on from Siebel. You can't hold Mario up. Nicely done. Great racing in the midfield, just as there is at the front. Pouget is doing everything he can to take on Torelli, but Torelli just seems to have authority over the rest of the field in these tricky conditions. Schimpf, Gerardo and Spinkovic. Then Nicolas Milan in front of Ricciarini. Schimpf, Milkovic and Bordagere, and that's an incident there from Fay. So Michel Fay, I'm afraid, has gone off the road in the GM Sport car. Now that looks to me like that's in the first sector. So Michel Fay has gone off there, potentially at turn 2, maybe even turn 3. So the cars are still going, still racing hard. This is Schimpf, Milkovic, Bordagere, Alonso and Ximenez. The quintet coming towards us in their duel for 8th position. Still they battle on. I think actually Michel Fay's car is far enough off the road to not cause a stoppage, and up the inside, lovely job from Milkovic. Gets past Schimpf before they even turn in. Goodness me, two wheels almost a 45-degree angle from when Milkovic turned in there. Spots on the camera lens at the top of the hill, so it's only really at this final section of the course where it's a real problem. Look at that flapping wing mirror for Anthony Gerardo in 4th position. Trying to close up on Schimpf, he doesn't need it. He's going to have an attack on Schimpf. Brakes, brakes, brakes. But Schimpf is going to be slowing and fast out, but that was beautifully timed from Gerardo. He got the car stopped enough that even though he outbraked Schimpf by quite a considerable way, he was able to turn the car in and stop it so that there was no undercut from Schimpf. That was really well handled from Gerardo. Placed the car exactly where he needed to on the exit. He doesn't need that right wing mirror, does he? 3rd position going well. Now, can he close up on Torelli and Pouget? He's got 6.5 minutes, but he's got 1.7 seconds deficit to the leader, just over a second deficit to Pouget. So it's going to be tricky to see if he can close up on that. Several incidents are being investigated after the race. Venturi versus Alonso, they're going to be investigated post-race, and so is Spinkovic and Stucki. So I wonder if Stucki's spin might have been caused by a little bit of a love tap from Spinkovic. They're certainly going to investigate it to see if it was. But Adrian Schimpf is now trying to get back on terms with Gerardo, who has worked his way up from 11th on the grid to 3rd position in the race. So excellent run from Gerardo, not bad from Pouget either, from 4th on the grid to 2nd. Qualifying not always the way the race is going to play out, as Adrian Schimpf has not given up on the victory here. Looking good in the class as well, leading class, but he wants to get onto the overall podium as well. Gerardo snaking under braking. So Adrian Schimpf is trying to get back into the overall top 3, and Jerzy Spinkovic is behind them, the Pole, who has the fastest lap of the race, incidentally, a 1:05.0 in the first sector, actually. It's the first sector that he's good at. The fastest lap of the race has actually come from Anthony Gerardo at 2:21.8. If he can keep that kind of pace up, he might just catch Torelli and Pouget before the end. But certainly Spinkovic was the fastest man in the first sector. So this is where they need the windscreen wipers for this corner and a half of circuit. Mind you, the rain has stopped again here. It was just a slight spattering. fastest lap of the race did come from Jerzy Spinkovic before, 2:22.7. That has now been beaten by Anthony Girardot, I do believe, who's done a 2:21.8. So here we have Tirelli and Pouget, 0.8 of a second between them. Girardot trying to break the toe of Schimpf and Spinkovic, and the sun comes out again. And as a result of that, Schimpf switches off his windscreen wipers. Ricciarini hasn't yet. Still battles going on for the other drivers in the field. Alonso, Ximenes and Bordagere. Looks like Bordagere has had a little bit of a wing mirror adjustment during the race as well, as Alonso brakes very late into the first corner. Jacopo Ximenes has a chance to go for him, but this is very well covered indeed by Mariano Alonso. He's been able to hold on to this for the time being. Flapping wing mirror now for Bordagere. It's worked its way loose, so he doesn't need his right mirror either. Watch for Ximenes, going to try and get the move on the inside of Mariano Alonso. He's got a good exit off the turn, and I think surely he'll have the momentum, but he won't have the line to the next corner. That's the key factor. Alonso's going to come back to the inside. Patience for Bordagere. He can make up a place or two here, Jeremy Bordagere, if he just waits for this to linger on. Keeps it in position. 3.5 minutes to go, plus the additional lap. And these three drivers still going at it. Alonso, Ximenes and Bordagere. So Alonso's going to move to the middle of the road to stop an inside attack from Ximenes. Because at that point, you can't go left, you can't go right. You just have to sit behind the car in front and wait for another gap to open up. But up at the front, Girardot, having got into third position, is now trying to close up. And unfortunately, he hasn't got a decent lap by comparison to Tirelli and Pouget. Tirelli did a 2:22.1. Pouget did a 2:22.3. Girardot is actually slowing up now. He's done a 2:22.5. And Schimpf, getting it a little bit wide there on the gravel, is now going to fall into the clutches of this man, Jerzy Spinkovic, the Polish driver. He's got better momentum. So this is all going to be about defensive tactics for Schimpf. Bit of a lock-up from Adrian Schimpf as well. So Spinkovic has got him on the ropes. Girardot still holding on to third, but he doesn't have the pace that he did have to close up on Tirelli and Pouget. He needs the momentum to carry him further forward. He just doesn't have it. So across the line, there's going to be 2:25 to go when the leaders... Oh, there might actually be time for only 2 laps. Yeah, there is the finish line. They've already come through it. So I think this is going to be the penultimate lap of the race, actually. Spinkovic trying to go for Schimpf, while Schimpf is going for Girardot. Watch for Jerzy on the far side. Jerzy is going to make his move. They're going to go 3 wide. Girardot's going to hold the middle. Spinkovic tucks back in behind Girardot. Now he's going to get the inside line for Schimpf. Leaning on it. Literally, bang doors, once, twice. Schimpf goes long on the brakes, through 3, but he drifts out wide, and Spinkovic has got the place. Nicely done from the pole. You can have a little bit... Oh, and Girardot drifts very wide off the next corner. So Spinkovic is going to have big momentum going down to the next chicane. Girardot skates off the road big time. Has he overcooked the tyres? Because obviously they've had 2 dry weather periods in this race. A little bit of rain to overwork them and cool them down, perhaps. But I'm not sure how many phases these Michelins have. Now, interestingly, Girardot is being caught now by Spinkovic. They're not getting anywhere near the leaders. Big mistake in that first sector by Girardot. But Spinkovic, having worked his way to 4th position, can get himself to the podium. So Jerzy Spinkovic now in 4th position. Here's the leading battle. Can Pouget get close enough to Tirelli to challenge on the final lap? That's going to be his prime objective. And Pouget has absolutely got to throw everything at Tirelli. He did yesterday, literally. But can he get close enough to challenge on the final lap? At the moment, the gap is, well, it was 0.6 of a second. As they went through the last timing interval, it was 0.4 of a second. So Pouget has just got to keep piling on the pressure to Tirelli. Tirelli will not want any ounce of an opportunity to creep in, as Alejandro Schimpf gets the black and white flag for disrespecting the track limits. That's Alejandro, not Adrian. Girardot still holding on to 3rd in front of Spinkovic and Schimpf, with Nicolas Milan closing in on them. So he could steal something special in the final couple of laps of this race. But we're going to run out of time as they come out the final turn. So I think this is going to be the final lap we're about to start. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up, and there is the line. So here we go, into the final lap, is it? No, there is going to be one more lap. They just passed the timing beacon before the time ran out, so this is going to be 2 laps to go, not 1 lap to go. Jezek Spinkovic trying every trick in the book to get past Girardo, who is making that Clio as wide as a Buick at the moment. And Spinkovic loses it, and off goes Schimpf with him. Spinkovic loses the car. Milan has to take avoiding action. Spinkovic drifts into the tyres. Game over. What a shame for the pole. Let's see how that happened. So Girardo holding him up. Spinkovic gets back on the throttle. And look, he just loses it on the curb. There was nothing anybody did. Spinkovic got on the curb, and there was still water on that curb, so it spat him out into the path of Schimpf and Milan. So very unfortunate for Jezek Spinkovic. Nobody driving stupidly there, just unfortunate that he caught the curb, and there was a damp patch there, it spat him off. Now Tirelli going very deep into the hairpin. Pouget's got a chance, here we go. With a lap and a half to go, Pouget's going to be all over Gabriele Tirelli. He's alongside him. So Tirelli going to try and thwart the attack. He's going to have the line for the next corner. Pouget's going to be smart. He'll drop back behind him, but he'll get an opportunity. He'll get momentum. Back up the hill to the chicane. Pouget swarming around behind Gabriele Tirelli. Which way am I going to go? I'm going to keep you guessing. Through the left. Up to the right. Big launch on the inside from Pouget. Tirelli keeps it long on the far side, but he drifts wide on the exit. Pouget will have a cleaner exit. Up to the Vidal chicane we go. There's a lap to go at the end of this one. So this is going to be a battle royale. Pouget will try. Tirelli's going to move to cover. No room given at all. Through to the Vidal chicane. Again, Pouget throwing everything at Gabriele Tirelli. Great stuff between these two. And still, they will keep it as close and as clean as they have to until they get impatient. Still a brilliant run. Last lap, here we go. Tirelli versus Pouget. This got very nearly personal yesterday. Let's see how it goes in the final lap. Here comes Pouget. He's piling on the pressure. Tirelli's going to hold the inside line. Pouget's going to draw level alongside. It's still a little bit damp to the far side as they both drift off the road. Pouget's not going to concede. Dives up the inside this time. Tirelli gives him a little bit more room than yesterday, but he's going to come straight back for the switch. And they rack doors. Pouget's going to hold this. Tirelli's going to come back through. Mind if I come past you? No, I'm going to draw level. I'm going to get away. But now, Tirelli's going to go slow in, fast out. Pouget's going to drift wide onto the gravel. Comes back on the road. Gabriele Tirelli's going to come back at him. This is brilliant racing. Down the chicane drop again. And here comes the chance for Tirelli. He's timed this perfectly. Pouget's not going to make it easy. And there goes the other wing mirror for Tirelli. His left wing mirror comes off the car. It's hanging by one wire, I think. So now Tirelli has got the lead back again. There's the other mirror of Pouget. That's flapping in the breeze as well. But Pouget is still right there for good measure. He still has a chance to take him on. Girardo in third position further back. Schimpf, Milan and Ricciarini. Milkovic, Schimpf, Alonso and Puccetti are going to finish in the top 10 if they stay in position, keeping this together. David Pouget wants one final crack at Tirelli. Trying to make him think he's closer to him than he was. He's got to go long on the brakes here. Oh, and he's lost it! How did he save that? David Pouget saves it in big, big measure. So he's only dropped about a car length, but I'm not sure he's going to get another shot at Gabriele Tirelli. Tirelli's too far ahead now. David Pouget did everything he could. Gabriele Tirelli made it as tough as possible. But Gabriele Tirelli has brought this home in fine style. David Pouget tried every trick in the book. He's still trying every trick in the book. But this time, Gabriele Tirelli will not be thwarted. He will not be conquered. He comes out of the final turn, and Gabriele Tirelli is going to get the job done. Brilliant victory, brilliant battle. That's what we like in Clio Cup. Pouget is second. Third is Anthony Girardo from 11th on the grid. Great racing. Excellent stuff. It's a class victory further back for Adrian Schimpf. He comes through in 5th position, gets the job done. And Jeremy Bonagere comes through for the class win as well in 11th place. Superb racing. Still great battles to the line. We had a few more retirements than yesterday. We've only got 31 cars coming home on this occasion. But I tell you what, that was awesome. Yet again, that was awesome. Jeremy Bonagere comes through for the class victory. The guest driver doing a great job there. So there's several class winners to come through, as there always is in the Clio Cup. But a great race. Torelli and Pouget, that's more like it. They were still going to be as aggressive and as forceful as they possibly could to each other, but they were a lot more respectful today. Yes, there was a little bit of paint traded. Yes, there was a little bit of argy-bargy, but you come to expect that in Clio Cup sometimes. But both drivers gave as good as they got. And I think David Pouget will be the first one to hold his hand up and say, yep, I messed up on the final lap. I threw away the chance to go for the win. It was a fantastic save on the curbs. And there is Andreas Stuckey, who despite all of that, manages to come through for a class win himself. Brilliant race battles here at the Nürburgring. And for Torelli and Pouget, they can be incredibly satisfied with the way that ended. That was genuinely sensational motorsport. Leave the drivers to it. And as Descalda says on the stream, Clio Cup at its best. Amen, brother, amen. Gabriele Torelli in the Rangoni Corsa car. That's much better than he had from yesterday. He got a 3rd place yesterday, but he was not satisfied. Today, he bats his bag for the win. He can pretty much lean over and pick up that wing mirror before it falls off the car. But he's far too busy waving to the fans and the marshals. Let's have a look at that big moment from David Pouget. Wow, how did he save that? How did he save it? Just incredible. And that gave him 2nd position at the end of all of that. He was very, very lucky. Descalda wants to know how many mirrors are damaged. I will not be at all surprised if I need 3 hands to count them. Torelli, Pouget and Gerardo, your podium finishers in the main class. Nicolas Milan fighting to 4th position. Schimpf in 5th from Ricciarini. Milkovic, Schimpf, Alonso, and the guest winner, Bonagere. Fabulous racing there in the Clio Cup Series. You've got to go all the way down to the top 20 to find Sibyl in 20th position. He gave us plenty of drama. Super Mario worked his way to 18th in the end. A good comeback from the Dutchman, Martijn Kool. But great racing all the way through. And incredibly, there were 30 finishers in the race. Unfortunately, we lost Jerzy Spinkovic, Michel Fay. Aurélien René was coming in to retire, not to change tyres. Alexander Finkelstein retired from the race as well, the race 1 winner yesterday. And we lost Lars Ziadus on the very first lap. Incident involving car 125, Jerzy Spinkovic, no further action. And I think that's the right call because he just hit a wet patch on the curb. There we go, the embrace from the family. Gabriele Torelli absolutely salvaging a brilliant race drive and a great victory today after the disappointment of yesterday. He'll be very satisfied with the way today has ended, as will the Rangoni Corsa squad. Well done to Gabriele Torelli, that's more like it. A very solid effort indeed there from Gabriele Torelli. And how about that? A nice embrace for the two men. It got a little bit heated yesterday, not today. Just hard, no-nonsense racing between David Pouget and Gabriele Torelli. Excellent racing. So it continues in fine style, the Clio Cup Series here at the Nürburgring. We had a little threat of ominous rain. It never really broke. So we are able to continue with a fantastic battle and a really exciting run all the way through. Gabriele Torelli, victorious, vincitore here at the Nürburgring. It was a tough race battle. He had a lot to work on. David Pouget throwing everything at it and certainly making him work for his 2nd race of the weekend. Eat my cheese, it says below the Renault badge. I think everybody will have to today. Gabriele Torelli getting a fabulous victory in terrific fashion. And that really sets him up for a great second half of the year in the Clio Cup Series as the championship continues to progress. But Torelli getting the victory in fine style. doing a reasonably good job of defending and having a lot of hard work from David Pouget and Anthony Girardot. Not that Girardot came close enough to challenge, but Pouget definitely did. Bit of paint traded. That's Clio Cup for you, isn't it? So the Eiffel Mountains providing the most exquisite of backdrops to the Clio Cup Series. The drivers will have a brilliant race battle at the Nürburgring. Race 2, Gabriele Torelli out in front of David Pouget at the start, who leapt from 4th on the grid to 2nd. Did a sensational job to work his way forward. Schimpf versus Finkelstein into the first corner as they went wheel to wheel. Thomas Pekar unfortunately ended up going wide. Then we had the big moment from Laurent Ziodus. He tangled with Guillaume Maillot, and it was Ziodus that ended up out of the race. That brought out the safety car. But when we went racing again, Nicolas Milan found the dirty stuff. Anthony Girardot managed to find several drivers' door panels. But in the greasy conditions, as rain appeared in the final corner, Finkelstein dropped out of the race after contact with Nicolas Milan. There would be no repeat of a second win as Ricciarini and Stucki ended up coming a cropper at the first corner. Girardot duelled avidly with Adrian Schimpf and Jerzy Spinkovic. Unfortunate as it was for the pole, as Jerzy Spinkovic would eventually fall off the road, managing to get into 4th position. But as he challenged Anthony Girardot, he dropped a wheel on the curb on the exit of turn 1. It was damp and it spat the Clio out into the path of Schimpf and Milan, ending the race for Spinkovic. Then the battle that was always inevitable, Pouget versus Torelli. They battled wheel to wheel, door to door, mirror to mirror. And despite no gaps being given, Pouget found the line to get through. Torelli stormed back on the inside just 4 corners later. David Pouget tried everything to keep up with Gabriele Torelli, but the Italian had done enough. He came through, out of the final turn, and Gabriele Torelli would take the victory here at the Nürburgring in the Clio Cup Series second race. A great run for the Italian. So Gabriele Torelli, David Pouget and Anthony Girardot will make their way to the podium. And you can see there David Pouget frustrated, but certainly in better spirits than yesterday. But try as they might, Girardot fighting from 11th to 3rd, Pouget from 4th to 2nd. They couldn't beat the Italian, Gabriele Torelli. Great performance. And of course, for the Rangoni Corsa team, they make their way to the podium as well. So I do believe we'll hear the Italian national anthem. So a fabulous run from Gabriele Torelli, the last race before the Clio Cup Series summer break. It'll all get back into action again as we approach September. And a great performance indeed from our drivers. Anthony Girardot, 11th on the grid, all the way to 3rd. A fabulous drive from him. If only he'd been able to keep a little closer to Torelli and Pouget. As the clerk of the course, Frank Talla, will give out the trophies, of course. David Pouget, 2nd place. He'll be frustrated. I think he knows he threw that one away. But Gabi Torelli, what a drive. Holds on for his win in fantastic style. He was 3rd yesterday, a win today. That really does give Gabi Torelli a great run. And I love the fact that Anthony Girardot has been accompanied clearly by a young family member. I don't want to be presumptuous and say son or nephew, but a fabulous run. So the Clio Cup Series at the Nürburgring, wins for Alex Finkelstein and Gabriele Torelli. A great performance here at the Nürburgring. We go to the summer break now in the Clio Cup Series. When we return, the action will be palpable, exciting and nail-biting as ever. From Jake Sanson at the Nürburgring, ciao for now.